Today we are focusing on all things Four of Pentacles. I've also changed scenery. Still in the same room, just thought I'd give you a different view. But yes, all things Four of Pentacles. So whereas with the Three of Pentacles, we were talking about, teamwork, we were talking about collaboration, we were talking about skill development. The journey then progresses to the Four of Pentacles, and this is a phase where you are now making sure that you keep hold of the things you've achieved. Collaboration is important, but then once collaboration happens, you need good management of the resources to ensure that long-term stability and security are maintained. You don't want to have done all this work for nothing and then kind of let it go. So this can sometimes lead to cautious and conservative behaviour. So as much as the Four of Pentacles signifies stability, it signifies security, it can also signify control and fear of loss, because you don't want to lose what you've already achieved or accumulated. You want to hold on to it. So let's get into the imagery within this card. Okay, please excuse the background. I don't currently have a coffee table. I'm waiting for my new one to be delivered. So we're resting on my laptop at the moment just for somewhere to put the card. But basically, we're going to start discussing the imagery here and this main figure here. So this man, he is basically holding a pentacle here over his heart. He's got two other pentacles very firmly on his feet, and then he's got one above his head. Now, this is trying to show his deep attachment to to material possessions, to wealth, and to security. He does not want to let go of that. He's clinging to everything he owns with great intensity. You'll notice in the background we have a city or a town, and that is there to show security, is there to show safety. Now, he's actually away from that town or city. So this could be showing that he's disconnected from his community, he's disconnected from his social ties, because he's all consumed by his material possessions, by the things he owns. It's basically trying to symbolize that his material gains are more important to him than his connection with society. Now, there is obviously, like we discussed with the Four Pentacles, there's one also placed on his head, like I said. Now, the reason that sits on his head is that's trying to show basically his egotistical attachment to wealth. It's showing that his thoughts are consumed by what he possesses and what he owns, to the point where that overtakes his whole identity. He's also sat in a very rigid posture, and that is to signify basically his emotional rigidity. He's very closed off to anything that doesn't concern his wealth or his material possessions. It basically shows how all his material concerns basically take over every aspect of his life. That's all he cares about currently. This whole imagery here very much shows that this figure is solely focused on maintaining his position, maintaining his stability, and holding on to the possessions he owns, with his back to everything else, because nothing else at this point in time matters. And that is your symbolism and imagery within the Four of Pentacles. We are back, and this is part 2 of the Four of Pentacles. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the upright interpretations if it comes out in the tarot reading. So let's get into that. Now, obviously, we've already talked about the fact that the Four of Pentacles talks about stability, security, control, and fear of loss. Okay, so if this was to come out in a tarot reading, it's one of those cards that really you do need a company. I mean, there's more cards that need it, but I feel very much with this card that the cards that come out around it will help you to interpret it better. But that being said, if this was to come out in a tarot reading, now this could be emphasizing the importance of needing to save, of securing your financial resources, it could be suggesting a time of focusing on building and maintaining your financial stability. But it can also indicate control and possession. So this could indicate that you have a really strong need, a really strong urge to control your resources and possessions, you know, which does lead to being overly miserly, overly cautious, you know. You could be one of those people that when your wallet opens, moths fly out. You don't like spending your money. Now, when this comes to the energy of money, that's never a good place to be in, because money has its own energy and frequency, okay? And if you set the energy around money of clinging onto it, holding onto it, you're never going to attract money, because money has the energy and frequency of flow. It has to be spent. You know, that's what it is. So by holding on to it and refusing to spend it all the time, regardless of how much money you've got, all you're going to do is create for yourself more blocks and barriers. And a lot of the time when the Four of Pentacles comes up in a reading for me, it is signifying a block to financial stability, to financial abundance. And that is because of maybe some deep-seated belief systems, or, you know, ideas that you hold that are keeping you in this sort of place. And usually when this comes up in a tarot reading for me, as obviously I do take into account the other cards that come out around it, but when this comes up in a tarot reading for me, it's an opportunity for me to then discuss with this person, what are their beliefs around money? What do they think about money? Do they see it as sometimes, you know, the root of all evil, as you sometimes hear? Do they see it as something that they, you know, they are don't feel responsible in being able to manage their finances? Do they see it as something that, you know, always never stays around, you know, it goes out quicker than it comes in? What are the beliefs you have around money? What is the narrative you tell yourself about money? Because that usually will be the thing that's blocking the financial abundance coming in. So, and I'm a perfect example of this, because for years and years and years and years, I held the belief that money was the root of all evil. And that meant for years and years and years and years and years, I had a huge financial block, because I was giving out the energy that, no, I don't want money because money is the root of all evil. No, money is not the root of all evil. The root of all, well, it's not even the root of all evil, but people using it in nefarious ways, that's the cause of that. It's not the money itself, because money can do so much good as well as doing so much bad. It all depends on your intentions when you're spending it. So I really had to work hard to retrain myself to think differently about money. And once I started thinking differently about it, I changed my energy around money. Money started flowing to me a lot easier. So, I mean, really, most of the time when this comes up in a tarot reading, for me anyway, and you'll know this as you start doing readings, you get cards that they always mean that one thing. And 99% of the time, if this comes out, you have got some sort of belief system you're holding, or some, you know, some narrative you've been telling yourself, or somebody else has been telling you your whole life, and it's not factual, it's not true, and you need to change it. So there you go. What else? Obviously, it talks about fear of loss. So it can signify that you're afraid to take any risks, you know, or you're afraid to share your resources. And again, money is a very receptive energy. It's a very reciprocal energy. You know, you give, you receive, okay? It's not supposed to sit there and stagnate. Money has to move. It's the energy of it. I don't know how many different ways I can say it. So if you're in a fear of loss of money, and therefore you don't like sharing your resources, or you don't want to take risks with it, well, that money's just going to sit there and you're never going to attract more to you. And again, usually from the fear of loss, that will have come from a situation, an experience, or a narrative, or a belief you're holding. And you need to revisit those and really look at them and see, do they still hold true to me now? Or am I just repeating this because it's what I've always told myself or what I've always done? If it comes out in a relationship reading, I also see this as the person. This could be you, or it could be the partner, whoever it is, dependent on what I'm feeling at the time. But one of you is very possessive in this relationship, which is never a good thing, because people aren't possessions. We don't own anybody. But this can signify a possessive person within a relationship, somebody who can be very controlling, and somebody who can be very controlling around finances as well, because it's a Pentacle card. It can also show that this person is super hyper independent, does not like having to rely on anybody else, is very, very, very self-reliant, and wants to be in control of their own destiny at all times. Micromanages, basically. That can signify that for me too. It can also signify a very stubborn nature and refusal to change. Always going with the status quo, always doing what they've always done, isn't interested in looking at any other perspective. Which is funny, because a lot of the times cards with the upright interpretation usually have, you know, pretty positive connotations. But for me personally, the Four of Pentacles is usually pretty negative in a lot of ways. I don't ever really see it in more of a positive light. But that varies from person to person. But yeah, so there's that. So those are some basic upright interpretations of the Four of Pentacles. So join me in the next one. We're going to be talking about the Five of Pentacles. And you know I love the fives. Dun, dun, dun.